7 o'clock. I'd like to call the town meeting to order. My name is Carl Fortuna. I'm the first selectman. Tonight we are going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. So would you please rise for that? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. For some folks to come in, we have some formalities to start with, so I am going to start the meeting. The first order of business tonight is to nominate a moderator. Ed Cassell has been nominated, seconded. All those in favor? Any discussion first? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Thank you. Ed?
Okay, thank you. I'd like to recognize Sarah Becker to read the call.
Notice is hereby given that a special town meeting of the electors and citizens qualified to vote in town meetings of the town of Old Saybrook will be held at the Old Saybrook Middle School Auditorium, 60 Sheffield Street, Old Saybrook, Connecticut, on February 2, 2015, postponed to February 10, 2015, at 7 p.m. for the following purposes. To act upon the recommendation of the Board of Finance and Board of Selectmen to appropriate the sum of $361,570 for the Old Saybrook Department of Police Services to acquire a marine vessel. Said funds will initially be paid out of the town's unappropriated surplus account, which account will subsequently be reimbursed in the following manner. 1. $271,177.50 will be reimbursed to the town pursuant to the Department of Homeland Security fiscal year 2014 Port Security Grant Program. The Old Saybrook Department of Police Services will administer said award. These federal grant funds are made available through authorizing legislation at Section 102 of the Maritime Transportation Security Act of 2002 as amended. Funding was appropriated by Congress in the Department of Homeland Security Appropriations Act 2014. The funds will be reimbursed to the town by the United States government pursuant to an agreement between the town and the federal government. 2. $90,392.50 will be reimbursed to the unappropriated surplus account for monies available in the town's reserve fund for capital and non-recurring expenditures. Signed, Carl Fortuna, Jr., First Selectman, Scott Gebridge, Selectman, Stephen Gernhardt, Selectman, dated Old Saybrook, Connecticut, the 13th day of January 2015, attest Sarah Becker, Town Clerk.
Thank you, Sarah. As many of you know, there will not be a vote this evening on a specific question regarding the appropriation of funds due to a petition with more than 200 signatures being submitted, requesting that the matters be submitted to referendum. We do have two matters on that we need to take place at the town meeting. The first is to set a date for the referendum, and following that, we will then have public discussion concerning the matter with this town meeting that will be set for the referendum. So with that, I'll recognize Carl Fortuna on the matter of setting the date.
Prior to doing that, I'd like to be the bearer of bad news to the town meeting. We lost about a half an hour ago a distinguished figure in this community and former fire chief, David Heine Sr. Many of you probably know David. He died about a half an hour ago. And I can assure you right now that the members of the police department who are here with heavy hearts, and many members of the public safety community who wanted to be here are not able to be here because they are at the firehouse communing and with a grief counselor in an attempt to deal with this rather sudden and tragic loss. You know, as we move forward with tonight's discussion, I think something like that puts the matter in a little bit more perspective, bigger picture type of thing. And I would ask, as we move forward tonight, for all to engage in the discussion with utmost civility as we move forward tonight. That's what I'd like to say. I just wanted you to be aware of that. And that was really some awful news that just occurred. So with that, we'll move on to some discussion about tonight's matter. We have had a Marine Patrol vessel in the town of Old Saybrook for a very long time. I don't know that everybody knows exactly how long, but right around 1963, staffed with volunteers originally, and then in the 70s, more of a paid patrol. In today's budget, it's a relatively small budget item. Marine Patrol is less than $60,000. So there's a couple issues before the town meeting. There's the need for the boat. Is there a need for the boat? We've done it for 50 years. Should we continue to do it? And then also, and I think this is very important, and I think it will be addressed tonight, what is the mission of the Marine Patrol? We have at least 8 marinas in town. I think there might be 9. And I don't know how many of you are boaters. I'm not, but I have friends who have boats. And if you go out on the river or the sound, but particularly the river, it can be, you can be taking your life into your own hands sometimes. And there have been tragic accidents on the river that the town of Old Saybrook has responded to. I would submit to the town meeting that the Connecticut River needs a presence. We've always had a presence there, and I would submit that we need a presence, whether it's with this boat or another boat, but we need a presence, and I would submit that we should do it with this boat. Certainly, people tend to, it's the summer, people tend to drink alcohol, and that is also one of the missions of this boat. But it's a regional mission too. Let's not make any mistake about that. This boat, the current boat, has been beyond Old Saybrook for the budget that has been budgeted in previous years. It's been to Plum Island, it's been to New London, it's been at the Baldwin Bridge in cases of need when it's been called upon by a regional directive. So it has had a regional mission, and I would anticipate that will continue so long as we, the town of Old Saybrook, have a presence on the river. And the past selectmen, and the past town meeting, and the past referendums have all supported that mission of Marine Patrol. Funds for a new boat have been requested for many years. Going back to when I was on the Board of Finance, and even more recently, up through the point of receiving this grant, I can assure you that there has been money requested in a capital account for a new police boat. Grant Westerson came to me 5 years ago, maybe more, saying that boat needs to go, it's unsafe, it's dangerous, and we need a new boat. This is an opportunity to get a boat that will be $90,000. I think if you were to shop for a boat, it would certainly be more than $90,000. We have a 23-foot boat currently. This would be a 28-foot boat. It would be twin engine as opposed to single engine. And the officers are going to show you, probably surprisingly to you, the equipment on this boat is the proposed new equipment is not dissimilar to what is on the current boat. It's just more efficient, it's smaller, but it's very similar. Updated electronics, of course, and some updated monitoring equipment, but I'll let the officers talk about that. So the equipment on the boat is not different. It's updated and it's safer. The chief came to me a couple years ago after having the capital account repeatedly cut and said, hey, if I put in for a grant, would you be supportive of that? And I said, yes, I would be. The grant was rejected the first year, and in the second year we did receive this grant, and here we all are. And by the way, thank you for coming out. We tried to schedule this last Monday, and fortunately the weather held out tonight. There is no heat in this auditorium, you might notice. That was told to me this morning, but I think it's not unbearable. You know, I mentioned safety earlier, and one of, you know, the other day in the hallway upstairs in the town hall, I was visiting with one of my town offices, and Sarah Lyons, who works in the land use department, and Kathy Noyes, who works for the fire marshal, were moving a rather heavy box. They were carrying it down the hallway. And I said, stop it. I don't want you guys to get injured. I'll do it. And I tried to grab another one of the guys to do it with me. It's the same thing with this boat. If they're responding, if I have an officer, Officer Ryan Walsh or Jeff DePerry, if I have them responding to a boat that's crashed on a jetty, I had a friend who crashed his boat on a jetty, or another boat that circled into another boat and cut it in half and people died. And if that happens in the fog in September, I want the officers responding in a safe boat. I want the best radar, and I want a boat that they are going to be, that's going to be a stable boat in which they're actually going to be able to help people. And, you know, when the fire department goes out or the police department goes out and there's an emergency, the first thing I ask is everybody okay? Because you want everybody to go home at the end of the night and not to a hospital. I've reviewed the grant. That's another question that's come up. I've reviewed the grant. And probably the biggest issue is the mission. What's the mission? And I think that's a very legitimate question. I am convinced that the mission does not expand. Mission has been the mission for the last 30 years, and I am confident, and representatives from the police department have assured me that the mission remains the same. It does not expand with this grant. It's something that we've talked about for years. It's been in front of the Board of Finance, and here we are in front of the town meeting. And that is some of the background, and that's where I'm coming from on this issue. So with that, I'll turn it over to Ed. Since this item went to referendum, we have to set a date for a referendum. And that date has to be no sooner than 7 or greater than 14 days. Next week is school vacation week. And I've been told in the past, don't do anything during school vacation week, so we won't. So I am recommending to town meeting, and I would ask for a motion to this effect, that we have the referendum on this matter from noon to 8, 2 weeks from today, February 24th. So moved by Mr. Thorpe, seconded by Mr. Westerson. I'll leave it to the moderator for discussion.
Any further discussion on setting the date for the referendum? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Okay, next we'll recognize Sergeant Ryan Walsh and Sergeant Jeff DePerry. Mr. Finch, Chairman. Please, thank you.
Good evening. Please excuse me if I'm not 100% on my game tonight, as I've been friends with former Chief Heine since I was about 10 years old, and it's rather shocking when I walked in this evening. My name's Bob Finch, for those that don't know me. I've been involved in various different boards and commissions of the town of Old Saybrook for many years, serving on the Board of Selectmen and quite a few years on the Board of Finance. I understand that right now is not necessarily the best time to come and ask the town for money. We're in the middle of the budget season. We have the new police building coming along. But as the first selectman stated, we have recognized that the vote is failing for a number of years. And when it's been brought to the attention of the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance, it was suggested we attempt to get a grant. We have been fortunate enough to receive that grant. The money is available now, probably will not be available in the future. So although it's not necessarily a good time to ask for additional funds, it's now or never, so to speak. I'd ask you to put politics and personalities aside. Old Saybrook has 9 major marinas, over 2,000 boat slips, approximately 340 direct waterfront homes, 2 public and 6 private beaches, 2 boat launch facilities, the I-95 bridge, the Amtrak bridge, and we also provide security for the Plum Island Ferry when it's in Connecticut, Saybrook waters. We're also surrounded, almost 2/3 of the town is surrounded by water. This is the reasoning behind starting a Marine Patrol many years ago and continuing it through till today. This population deserves police protection, the same as each one of you deserve police protection in your neighborhood. The marine industry and the people that come here because of that industry is an economic engine for this town in the summer months. All these people that have boats, they come to Saybrook, they eat in our restaurants, they shop in our shops, and they do deserve police protection. Some of these boats are very, very expensive, and we have an obligation to provide police protection for them. I'd like to dispel a few of the rumors / misinformation that I've heard going around. First of all, the boat is not $600,000. You'll recall the meeting, you'll get the exact number. We will not be patrolling from Maine to Florida. A little exaggeration, but there have been some rumors out there that we're going to be all over Long Island Sound, basically becoming a second Coast Guard, and that's not the case. No more personnel will be hired. No more hours of patrol duty are scheduled or asked for in the budget for the new boat. No more than last year or the year before. We do have mutual aid agreements with other towns and other governmental facilities or agencies. If we're called upon to help out Clinton, Madison, whatever town, local town, we will respond if we can, depending on the weather, etc. The same as if we call them today, they will help us as they did maybe 6 months ago on a case where we needed police officers for a particular incident, and other towns sent officers to Old Saybrook to help us. This is a piece of equipment that's necessary for the town, and it's ailing and dying quickly. I question whether we'd even be having these kinds of conversations and referendums if we needed a new loader or a new dump truck and we were able to buy them with grants at 25 cents on the dollar. For some reason, because it's a police vessel, it's become a lightning rod. The boat grant and purchase has been endorsed by the Police Commission, the Board of Selectmen, and the Board of Finance. At this time, I'd like to turn the presentation over to Sergeant Perry and Sergeant Walsh. They'll go through the current boat, proposed future boat, any kind of technical questions they can answer. If there's something you'd like to ask me, I'd be happy to try and answer it for you. I also would like to thank the rest of their committee, because there's been a whole committee working on this. They've worked so hard to get this grant so that the town of Old Saybrook can replace a needed piece of equipment at 25 cents on the dollar. In my book, that's a pretty good bargain. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm not sure this is in my job description, but I'm certainly not a salesman, and we're going to talk about a PowerPoint presentation that we've given to the Board of Finance, the Board of Selectmen, and the Police Commission, and clearly by the comments from the first Selectman and the Chairman of the Police Commission. They've actually listened to our PowerPoint presentation. Again, not here to sell you anything. I'm here to tell you about a grant that we applied for and fortunately received for a new replacement police vessel. With that, let's turn it over to Ryan Walsh.
Well, thank you. I'll introduce Sergeant Perry then. So you skipped that part. So I'm Ryan Walsh. Unfortunately, we're going to have to keep going like this as we change the slide. Our mouse doesn't reach all the way over to the microphone. So if you can't hear us, please let us know.
Can't hear you.
Can't hear you. Okay.
All right, we'll try and make this work for tonight. I'd rather move around than stand behind the podium. As Sergeant Perry said, my name is Ryan Walsh. I'm a transported or a summer person who now lives here full time. I've been with the police department 13 years. I've been assigned to the Marine Committee for several years. I've been on the Marine Patrol since I got on the force 13 years ago. The Marine Committee was formed by Chief Spira back in 2012 when we had a mid-year engine failure with the current police boat. The members of the committee are Detective Heine, who couldn't be here tonight, most obviously. Master Sergeant Jay Rankin, who's also not here tonight, based on the earlier news. Sergeant DePerry, myself. Grant Westerson, who is a Marine operator for us, and we'll explain what that means in a little bit. And Scott Massey, who is a town citizen and a Marine owner, and basically a subject matter expert. As you've heard earlier tonight, the River Traffic Control Authority was established in 1963 here in Old Saybrook, and it was a volunteer organization that actually had two boats. There was a 23-foot Formula and a 14-foot Mako that was strictly over in the Indian Town area to police that area and patrol that area. Around 1973 to 76, the River Traffic Authority was brought into the police department fold, and the police department has been running the Marine Patrol in Old Saybrook ever since as a standalone budget. As Mr. Fortuna said, it's less than $60,000 a year for the entire Marine Patrol program. You're going to hear us say this several times tonight. Obviously, we're going to talk about the current program and the grant. And obviously, our goal is to answer your questions that we've read on social media, that we've read in the newspaper, that we've had people come up and ask us. There's no new mission with this program. This is not a new program. There's no new personnel that's going to be assigned to this program. There's no new responsibilities with this program. We're simply obtaining a new asset for the police department. Whether it's a new police car, a new patrol rifle, or a new police boat, that's what we're after. A new asset that we can then use with our current mission as we do year in and year out. So a little bit about our current vessel. It was obtained in 1993 from the U.S. Coast Guard as surplus military equipment. So in other words, that vessel cost us $0 to obtain. It was obtained with a hole in the bottom. It was a spec boat for a jet drive that we then built out, putting the engine in, putting the T-top in, adding all the components over the years, right through present day. We're currently on the 5th motor. Again, that one was replaced in 2012. We get about 4 or 5 years out of a motor based on the patrol work that we do on the boat. It has the original electronics from 1997, right? And you'll see the radar, as again Mr. Fortuna talked about. The radar is almost as small as my iPhone. It's in my pocket. When we're out at 2 a.m. looking for a lost boater or somebody in the water, we shouldn't even be out there. It's not getting the job done at this point. Mr. Massey explained this to me. Basically, the boat's been pieced together since 1973. The program's been pieced together since 1973. We've never had a huge investment or an adequate investment in this program to do what we're doing. We kind of grabbed a little bit here, grabbed a little bit there, and built this current boat. I apologize for the pictures not being as good. We didn't anticipate using this big auditorium for this. This was more of a town hall conference room setup. But this is a picture of the current police boat. That's basically our winter setup. We have canvas dropped down on the sides to try and keep us a little bit warmer in the sun. It does not have an enclosed pilot house. It's just a center console boat. Again, it's a 20-year-old boat, 23 feet in length, and it really has limited usage based on the sea conditions. If you look at the chart on the upper right-hand side with the blue, with the red, yellow, and green, that's called the DAR assessment, green, amber, red assessment. Basically, that is, do we go or do we not go? And obviously, everybody looks up here and says, oh, this is the old Saybrook, it's the police department, you know, it's not a big town, it's not a busy town. We police Old Saybrook. We see a different side of Old Saybrook. We police a different element of Old Saybrook than most people know us here. Same thing when we're out on patrol boat. Yes, a lot of days you see us in the river, sitting off Saybrook Point Inn, Oak Leaf Marina, when we're patrolling for the no-wake violations. But we also have to think about the 2 a.m. foul weather call when we're going out for that lost boater, or we're going out for that missing boater. And we have to look at this green, amber, red assessment and decide, based on the crew, the vessel, and the weather, can we go? Obviously, with this current vessel, we can't go as many times as we'd like to go, or we can't go safely as many times as we'd like to go. A new boat is obviously going to make that much more available to us. A major issue with the boat, you can see the nice fireboat through the cloudy, milky canvas, because we can't see through it very good. So same thing, at 2 a.m. when you're looking for the boater in the water in the dark, you can't even see through the isinglass on a clear, sunny day. Something needs to be upgraded here. This slide shows a little bit of our electronics. You can see the middle slide there, the radar, the radios packed into the box on top of the console, some holes in the deck, just antiquated, outdated electronics from the mid-90s. Being an older painted aluminum boat, there's obviously some oxidation concerns. You can see the deck, non-skid, is starting to fail. Obviously another safety issue, foul weather, water on the decks makes it slippery, and just the paint bubbling, corrosion. There's two elements at play there. One is the paint corrosion, and then the second is the aluminum corrosion under the paint. So obviously we don't know the depth of the corrosion until we remove the paint, which obviously there's cost associated with that. And that's what we're trying to prevent here.
So as you've heard from the first selectman and the chairman of the police commission, back in 2012, the police department put together a marine strategic planning committee. One of those tasks that we had for this committee was to determine what grant funding was available for a replacement police vessel. So we started participating in local Coast Guard captain of the port meetings to talk to local police departments and law enforcement agencies to see what type of grant funding was available for a police vessel. We found that a number of local police departments and also fire departments had received port security funds through FEMA. We took a look at what their mission capabilities were for, and we kind of related those to Old Saybrook. You see up on the slide, prevention, protection, mitigation, response, and recovery. And we tried to decide if Old Saybrook fit into those funding categories. So we did apply for the grant in 2012. In 2012, we did not get the grant. The people from FEMA had a couple of meetings. One was at the Police Academy in Connecticut, and Ryan and I both went to that meeting, and we pretty bluntly asked the grant office why we didn't get this grant. And they said, well, you didn't meet the funding priorities for 2012's grant, which are similar for the following year's grant. So we took a look at those funding priorities a little bit differently this time. We looked at the enhancement of marine domain awareness. And basically that is where are the boats located throughout the state of Connecticut, and do we fit into a position where there aren't any funded vessels? And we happen to be directly between the Port of New London and the Port of New Haven, and we fall right into a gap in that type of area based on the funding that's been issued by the federal government. So we kind of hit on that in the grant application. The second thing, and which was one of the big factors involving our lack of funding for the 2012 grant, was this detection equipment that we really didn't feel that we needed, because we really didn't know what it was. And it's called sea burn detection, and we asked a lot of questions about it, and we were told, in order to fund a vessel platform, you need to include some sort of detection equipment. We did that with this year's grant. We'll get into that a little bit later, show you exactly what that detection equipment looks like, and it's not as intimidating as it may sound. And the big thing that we hit on for the grant, the big funding priority, was sustainment of the current asset, our current vessel, replacing our current vessel, showing that it was an aging vessel, and replacing that vessel.
And also, moving forward, one of the tasks with the whole committee was a budgetary task. Obviously, we know the environment when it comes to policing and funding, so you'll see in our design moving forward, we tried to eliminate some of the maintenance issues in terms of the paint. And then the port security grant, they're moving towards sustainment of assets that are already in place. This year alone, they funded Groton Town for $25,000 for sustainment, use of their boat, upgraded motors of their boat. Suffolk County Sheriff's Department received $145,000 for sustainment of a previous vessel. And currently the New London Marine Group has a training and capability grant for $210,000. Some of these meetings we've gone to and some of the trainings we've attended have been supplied to the port security grant. So we're trying to move forward here, reducing our budget or reducing the need of the town stores by getting involved in this port security grant. We can't say it's guaranteed, but we know we can apply for it once we move forward with this project.
So there's been a lot of questions about who we released the grant to and if we can release our copy of the grant. We have a legal opinion from the town attorney that says that we cannot release the grant to any citizens. The grant is protected and it's on every single page on the bottom of our investment justification. This is what it says at the bottom. So I'll let you guys read that for a second. It's basically you can't read it? I'll read it to you. This record contains security sensitive information that is controlled under 49 CFR parts 15 and 1520. No part of this record may be disclosed to persons without a need to know, quotes, as defined in 49 CFR parts 15 and 1520. Except with the written permission of the Administrator of the Transportation Security Administration or the Secretary of Transportation. Unauthorized release may result in civil penalty or other action. For U.S. government agencies, public disclosure is governed by 5 U.S.C. 552 and 49 CFR parts 15 and 1520. As I said, we have a legal opinion from our town attorney who is in the need to know area, and he has posted that, and it's posted on our website if you'd like to read the legal opinion. We'll entertain questions once we're done. So we added this slide in. It's to show the grant application. It is available to the public. So if you'd like to get a copy of the grant application with no information about Old Saybrook, you can certainly do that. The website's right there. You can pull up a copy of it, and if you read it, you can pretty much figure out what we put into our grant application. It's information that you can go to Google and enter in there, and you can kind of figure out what might be in our grant application. So let's talk a little bit about our current mission, and I'm going to turn it over to Ryan to talk about that.
And although we can't show you our grant application, we do wish we could. There's nothing to hide in it. A lot of this information is probably going to be found in the application. Again, we think of Old Saybrook one way, the police department thinks of Old Saybrook another way, FEMA thinks of Old Saybrook in another way. So obviously the residents, the citizens, the visitors, we look at Old Saybrook as a great place to live, to visit. All right, as a police department, we think of it as a great place to live and visit, and then how do we police it? We obviously have our mission as a police department. I'm going to skip to the bottom real quick. What are our marine patrol duties? Obviously, common law enforcement and security patrols. Whether it's a Friday, Saturday, Sunday patrol of the river, whether it's the chase fireworks years ago when we used to have that, and we would have mutual aid come into us. Remember all those police boats out there? We only have one. We have surrounding towns come and support us as we do them. Security zone enforcement, whether that's the Plum Island Ferry, or whether that's a dignitary in town at the Saybrook Point Inn or somewhere in town where the Secret Service requests us to have a presence. We've done that in the past. Obviously, search and rescue operations. We can't put a dollar on those in terms of getting out there quick enough, having the right equipment to find somebody that's in need. Emergency medical response. Everybody knows you call 911 in Old Saybrook for a medical. You're going to have a police officer there in 2 or 3 minutes. You're going to have 2 of us there in 2 or 3 minutes. We have to go on the water as well. We're required to go on the water. Boating accident investigation. Obviously, we had a terrible accident a number of years back that was brought up earlier. And we have minor accidents, whether it's somebody simply docking at the marina or somebody hitting the breakwater. We investigate all those crashes. FEMA, in the Port Security Grant, looks at Old Saybrook a little bit different. They're looking at what do we have that we need to protect for the good of the country. Think about Old Saybrook. Think about what's in our river, what spans our river. The Baldwin Bridge carries 82,000 cars a day. The Amtrak Railroad Bridge carries upwards of 50 trains a day. Passenger trains, freight trains, cargo trains, hazardous material trains. We obviously have to ensure the safety there. Obviously, the Plum Island Ferry Terminal is kind of an unknown in town. All right, Homeland Security has control of Plum Island now. The ferry is there. We're one of 2 terminals for that ferry, and we're one of 2 police departments that are trained to respond to that island, EMS-wise or security-wise. And just in terms of our coastline, we have one of the longest and busiest areas in the state of Connecticut. This information was actually given to us by DEP. I know it's very difficult to read, but obviously, to say it simple, is the darker the red, the busier the area. So this spans from Guilford to New London, and basically it shows the amount of traffic in the Old Saybrook area. The blue squares up there are the current Homeland Security, Port Security grant programs that are in place. So Guilford Fire was a recent award. I don't believe they've taken delivery of their boat yet. And then we have a Waterford East Line boat, Norwich Police Department has a boat, Groton Town has a boat, and Stonington has a boat. And obviously in the middle, you can see there's a need in FEMA's eyes to put a boat here. In the police department's eyes, we saw a need and a way to fill that need.
So getting back to the funding priorities. One of the second funding priorities was this detection device and equipment that we spoke of earlier. And obviously, you can see there under the bullet point, in order to put in for funding for a small boat, you had to put in for a detector. So that's what we found out when we failed to realize the grant the first year that we applied. So when we attended these meetings, we were told, you need this device. And we said, well, what exactly is it? And we were pretty much shown exactly what it is. It's not unlike devices that we've had in town in the past. We just didn't have them on the boat. So we'll get into that in the next slide here. These are the devices that we've had in the past. These are housed in the Department of Emergency Management. They're meters of a larger size because technology catches up really quick in these type of areas. And we've had these in town for years. They get calibrated, I believe, once a quarter, and they're necessary to have. I believe the state provides them through the Emergency Management Department. This here is the meter that we have to have on the boat, right? It's a meter just like any other meter, like your smoke detector in your house. It samples the air and tells us when bad stuff is present. That's what this does. We do have a nuclear power plant that's 10 miles, almost exactly 10 miles from the mouth of the Connecticut River. If we had a situation at the nuclear power plant, we needed to know if we were getting any type of radiation, this detector would tell us that. This is why the FEMA port security grant mandates this to be on a small vessel platform. Sure. So if we did get a reading on that meter, what we would do is we would clearly, you get one of those phone calls which you dread that says either stay in your house or evacuate. It most likely would say to evacuate. And we would determine what the safe zone is. And we would back out of the area and we would call the people who were properly trained to respond to those type of incidents. So that meter would identify what type of chemical was in the area, and it would tell us, we would obviously go to our hazardous materials book, and it would tell us what the standoff is, how far back we have to be, and what we should do to the citizens, you folks, whether or not we should have you evacuate or not. So that's basically our plan in case one of these meters goes off. So some funded projects. Fairfield received a Port Security Award in 2011 for a law enforcement vessel. They received $450,000, and looks like they chose a safe boat for the company, and it's 33 feet long. So there's been some questions about how big does your vessel need to be, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. But we took a look at the area that we serve, and we took a look at the conditions that are out there, and we took a look at what the safest boat for us to be out there it would be. And while we're looking around, Waterford has a similar boat to what we asked for. They have a 28-foot Sea Ark. They received the grant award in 2012, and their boat cost $520,000. Clearly, more equipment is spec'd on that boat. We didn't spec a whole lot of equipment on our boat. We wanted to make it functional for our port area, and we wanted to keep the cost somewhat reasonable, even though it does seem to be a lot of money. A couple other boats. Last year, Stonington took delivery of their 27-foot safe boat. Another large cabin, low deck space type of vessel. Not functional for our needs here on the river. We needed more of an enclosed pilot house, but not, we don't feel that we needed a vessel that you couldn't walk around the front of the console. We want more of a walk-around style vessel. So when we drafted our proposal, we talked to a bunch of companies and tried to figure out which boats were out there. Ryan and I went to see a few of these boats, and this boat is actually in use in Stamford. So we took a look at the hull design and how it would cut through water, and we got on it with their captain, and he showed us how it handled. And we decided, cost-wise, function-wise, this was a boat that fit the needs of Old Saybrook.
So again, looking at what we do here in Old Saybrook, yes, we have to be prepared for that 2 a.m. search and rescue call, but we also want to stop the wake violators outside of Saybrook Point Inn, causing damage to the boats at the marinas and such. So we came up with the 28-foot patrol boat. Everybody says, why 28 feet? Again, we're looking at the full scope of what we do as a police patrol boat. Patrol operations right through search and rescue. So we're not just patrolling within the river, but we're taking the turn out of the mouth of the river, which at times 28 feet is not going to be big enough to get through some of the conditions out there. We went with twin 300 horsepower Mercury Verados. Obviously the port security grant uses words we don't like, which is high speed. Right? We'd rather just have a quick response boat, but they actually use the terms high speed. And we took the Verado motors because that's what's on the Firebird. So in terms of budgeting, in terms of parts, we don't need 2 separate backup parts. We have 1 backup part for both the police department and the fire department if needed. We'll duplicity of service, cut down expenses again. The boat will have a tow post with some towing line for emergency towing. We went with a bare aluminum hull. It's going to look like a tank. It's not going to be a pretty boat at all. It's a work boat. That's why it's an aluminum boat. It's designed to get the job done. It's not going to be flashy and showy. We're not going to worry about scratching it and denting it. It is a work boat. Obviously, we're going to take care of it, but it's a work boat. The boat delivered is going to come with a trailer. The price of $361,000 in the grant includes pre-construction, post-construction meetings. It includes training for the entire police department, the dispatchers, and the civilian boat handler. Currently, the way the boat operates is we have budgeting for Friday, Saturday, and Sundays for, I believe, 20 weeks from Labor Day to Columbus Day. Ideally, we have a police officer and we have a civilian boat handler. So we have several civilians who are capable, qualified operators who are obviously paid a lesser rate than the police officers who are working the boat. The department training that's spec'd out in the bid, I know that's raised concerns. Why 35 people? Why all these people? We have 25 police officers. We have 2 part-time police officers. We have civilian boat handlers. And we have dispatchers that at times will actually come and assist us as well if needed. So those people will all get an orientation, just like they do when we get a new piece of equipment or a new car. We all know how our equipment works so we can get our job done. And that's all included throughout this grant proposal. Again, why 28 feet? Why do you need 300 horsepower motors? Why do you need all this stuff? We looked at the roles of the Old Saybrook Police Department and Marine Patrol. As a committee, we had a huge amount of experience in boating, boat building. Mr. Massey with the motors. We understand what's needed as a patrol boat. Again, we're designing a patrol boat, we're not designing a recreational boat. We wanted the center console style, but we needed a solid enclosure to have the all-weather capability. Again, ease of operations, the motors. We really designed this based on the needs of the department, and then we went and saw what boats are available. There's only a certain amount of boats that are made for police work and patrol work, so we really were kind of limited to what we could spec out. And obviously we had to look at the FEMA needs. What did FEMA require? Whether it was the Seaburn equipment, the integrated radio systems that spec'd out in the boat, the high-speed response, the multi-season use. We designed this boat to meet the needs of the department and the needs of FEMA. We've had the questions of why aluminum versus fiberglass. I have a fiberglass boat. I love it, but I only use it about 80 hours a year. This boat's going to be used over 300 hours a year. And think about the conditions it's going to be used in. I'm going to pick my days and go out with my wife and my kids and go sit at Hamburg Cove. This boat's going out when somebody calls us. Generally not in those conditions. It's going to be foul weather, rough conditions. So we need a boat with extra weight to handle the seas, or if we're scooping somebody out of the water and 3 of us are on the side of the boat, the aluminum boat is going to have balance versus the fiberglass boat is not going to be as buoyant. Aluminum alloys are a known product versus the manufacturing issues with fiberglass based on humidity, weather. Aluminum is the way to go for police boat. I know they had the Connecticut Marine Trades Association boat show this weekend in Hartford. No aluminum boats. It's a recreational boat show. You go to the patrol boat or work boat show, strictly aluminum boats. That's what we're after.
So the cost breakdown. The base boat is $229,000. All the added equipment, including the engines, detection equipment, the power system, and the electronics, adds up to $361,000. That's what our budget was. That's what we put in for the FEMA grant. The town cost share in this grant program is 25%. So that's how it comes out to the townspeople being responsible for the $90,000. So the federal government yearly appropriates $100 million for this program. So every year the federal government, since 2002, has spent $100 million on this program. We've applied to get a piece of that $100 million, and we were successful this time around. So that's why it's going back to the townspeople. Again, the federal share, $271, $177.50, and the town of Old Saybrook, 25% share, which we'll vote on the 24th, is $90,000, $391. $90,391. The proposed budget for 2015, it's been submitted, and this is what it looks like. So personnel, you'll see increases. And the reason that personnel increases is because we got a raise this past year, a contractual raise, and that personnel increase of 3%, $1,050, is due to contractual raises. It's going to have 2 motors, so that's the only increase in the proposed budget for next year for this vessel, is winterizing and taking care of that second motor.
Again, we heard a lot of your questions and very good concerns that you had when this was first proposed. We've done this now 3 times, so hopefully we're getting better at it. We've done it for the first election, Board of Finance, and the Police Commission, and every time there are some new questions. So we wanted to kind of dispel some of those early on. We're going to welcome your questions and your comments moving forward here. But again, we just want to reiterate a few things as we wrap up our portion of the town meeting. Acceptance of the grant requires that Old Saybrook spend up to $361,000 on the purchase of a patrol vessel. Nothing more. No other changes to our mission, to our personnel hours, or to the Marine Patrol. One factor, spend up to $361,000. If we can make the boat cost less than $361,000, it can be less than $361,000. We still have to meet the needs of FEMA, what we spec'd out. So we do, if we come in at $350,000, the $90,000 will be less than $90,000. I'm going to bring this up. A lot of people said the fireboat. Let's just use the fireboat. We already have this nice boat that's out in town. We're not going to take a fire truck on patrol and pull over speeders. Fire trucks are designed for fight fires. Fireboats are designed for fighting fires on the water. The size of that boat is 34 feet. It weighs 5,000 pounds more than ours suggested boat is. So the cost to run that, it's not made for policing. It's not going to do the job. Liability-wise, how's it going to look when the 2 police officers on the fireboat pass the boat that's on fire and pick up the fire? It's not going to work. I know it would be a cost savings, but it's not meant to be a police boat. Again, the sea burning equipment is a requirement of the grant. I wrote the grant in 2012, did not put it in there. We ranked higher in 2012 in the local area than we did in 2013, but we didn't have this in it, so FEMA said they can't. It was as simple as that. Again, aluminum is the premier material for the building of workboats. Future expenses will increase based on the vessel systems. Yes, so this boat is going to cost more to maintain. All right? It has 2 motors, has some different electronics, has some different systems on board, but there's no more additional man hours added, no more patrol missions added. And again, sustainment grants are available to be applied for once this funding is in place. And where's the $90,000 going to come from that the town has to pay for it? My tax is going to go up. We've paid our taxes to receive the federal money that's already been allocated. And it's my understanding that the $90,000 is going to come out of a capital non-recurring fund where the town takes money and sets it aside for expenses such as this, whether it's the bulldozer that Mr. Finch talked about, or the police boat, we have a capital account set up, so there's no future taxes being paid for this boat, to purchase this boat. Again, thank you for your time. We're going to turn this back to Mr. Casella, and we'll welcome some questions and comments.
Okay, thank you. We'll now open up the meeting for public comment and questions. Please be patient. We understand there's probably a lot of you who have views to share. I know these individuals up here wish to hear them and respond. Please state your name prior to making your question, prior to making your comment or asking your question. And if the question is raised, we'll ensure that the individual up here is in a position to answer. So I'll now open up the floor. Yes?
I have a question. I understand this. I watched on Facebook. I've been to the It's Just a Vote. Now, the maintenance, is there any...
Step up. You can step up to the mic. Please amplify yourselves or come up and speak into the microphone.
I understand that the grant is on a need-to-know basis, but I think the problem is there's so much misinformation and everyone keeps ramming it down our throat. It's just a vote, like we're idiots. We're not idiots. People have questions. There's been rumors that these engines have to be replaced at a certain time. People just want to know that. I don't think that's a matter of national security. I think that's something that should be answered. I think that's fair. I do have another comment. We said about Larry Bonin and a dozer and how we wouldn't have this big discussion. I don't think Larry Bonin would have acted like that in front of the Board of Finance, and I think that is also one of the biggest gripes with everybody here. A public apology would go a long way. I think this is a great deal. You'd have to be an idiot not to figure out that it's a great deal. But that behavior is just not acceptable, and the people in town should not have to accept it.
So in regards to the questions about the motors, just like the current boat, the motors last as long as they can. We do have a replacement cycle. We generally get about 1,500 hours out of the motor and then we replace it. Currently in our budgeting program, we have to allocate money for that a couple of years prior to the replacement of the motors. We'll have to do the same thing here moving forward with this boat. So picture 4 or 5 years down the road, we'll probably need new motors. But there's going to be the Port Sustainment Grant funds in place for that. One of the boats we looked at was the Stratford Police Department boat. They're obviously a little closer to Bridgeport. They get quite a bit more federal funds than we're going to get. But they already have spare motors that have been sitting in the garage because the sustainment grants were in place. And the way it works is when the grants are in place, the money has to be spent. So this $271,000 is going to be spent by this port security group, regardless if we use it or somebody else uses it. It's kind of how it works.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Sandy Romano. I have a question regarding one of your slides a few back said that it stated the price of the Saybrook was about $23,000, and it said other equipment and radar that was mandatory to receive that grant. Are those pieces of equipment the same as you would have spec'd out if you were not receiving that grant? Is it the same cost? And I guess the reason I'm asking is there's also a lot of us in town who know that sometimes when you make a deal, you pay a lot more for a septic system than you would if you had just gone out and bought a septic system. So that's the reason why I like to costing, we had to
Thank you for that comment. It's a great question. The only thing that we would not have spec'd out for this grant is this detector right here, which we didn't put in the original grant because we didn't feel that it was necessary and we didn't really understand why we needed it. So $23,000 of this grant, which we're going to pay 25 cents on the dollar, is a piece of equipment that we didn't originally feel was necessary, and it kind of comes along with the grant. The other electronics that are listed are boat electronics. There are 2 LCD monitors, it's radar, FLIR, sonar, it's a Raymarine package of electronics that goes on a vessel of this size, and it's standard for law enforcement and fire vessels of that size.
There's one other radio on the boat as well that's required, which is an encrypted AIS, automated information system. So when we turn the radio on, there's a screen somewhere where it shows that we're here. So we would incorporate that anyway, but that is a requirement as well, through the local.
In the back?
Everyone. My name's Marty Essex. My question is, how can you guarantee that your man hours will not increase when you have a boat that's going to have to go to sea and you're not going to be able to send one person? Because I'm sure that's a violation of OSHA or something. If you have 2, 3 people out on a boat, whether it's your dispatchers or someone else, other people are going to have to come in and fill those roles, meaning you're going to have to put out more man hours. Right?
Absolutely. In our current budget today, whether it's the police department budget or the Marine Patrol budget, we're working towards those numbers. We don't control what happens day to day, society does. So if we have a very busy year in the water, we're going to be over budget. We're going to trim patrols, but there's a chance that we'll be over budget. Just like with our sick bank, if we have somebody that goes out sick because they break their leg, we're not going to hit our target number within our budget. That's a fact of policing and how it works. That's more of a budget meeting, and those will be coming up in the future.
Well, no, it all goes with the boat.
So-
The boat we have now, you don't have all the capabilities on it. It's not going to Plum Island, where someone could be tied up for 12 hours.
So, I think to answer your question, our current boat has gone to Plum Island. We've done security escorts for the ferry in the past. Our current boat requires 2 persons on the boat. It's not safe to put 1 person on the boat. Pretty much any boat requires really 2 people. It does not change our mission. We would still go if we were capable today. This boat, capability-wise, is going to go in the water at the same time our current boat does, and it's going to come out at the same time. We're not increasing any hours because we do have a budget. That budget does have a number on it, and we do try to come within that budget each fiscal year. And we haven't changed that budget.
Okay.
I saw a hand in the back.
John Stengel, couple of questions regarding the mission. Your mission today, based on your current vessel, is it dictated by local jurisdiction? That's my first question.
Please ask all your questions.
Okay, dictated by local jurisdiction, dictated by mutual aid on an intrastate basis between towns. Are you telling me, in exchange for this grant, the mission does not change in terms of extending our jurisdiction? Any obligations to the Department of Homeland Security if required to assist? Because there's anecdotal information out there. For example, the town of Greenwich is responsible, when called upon, to go as far south as the southern tip of Manhattan and a larger part of Long Island Sound. My concern is mission creep, and my concern is an accurate description of what our operating budgets are going to be if we accept this grant. I'm not suggesting whether the grant is good or bad. My concern is we're being shown a set of numbers, and those numbers could change if, in fact, our mission is going to change. And if that's the case, the people of this town have a right to know if it affects our operating budget.
So that, hopefully this answers your question. The numbers do not change. We don't plan on changing the numbers. We understand that the townspeople have this cautious approach to it. The local mission has been the local mission since 1963. I did some research through the town, the books that come out every year, the fiscal town, the reports, town reports each year. The Marine Patrol dates back to 1963, and it's been run on the weekend since 1963. That's what we budget for right now. We budget for weekend patrols throughout the summer, and a little bit from spring until it's 21 weekends. That's what we budget for.
So is our mission a local mission today?
Our mission is a local mission today. We have responded regionally to different areas like we discussed, but not on a regular basis. It's on an emergency scale basis.
Okay, will we, in addition to our continued cooperation on it, intrastate basis with other towns, which we voluntarily do, will we also be required to be obligated to a Department of Homeland Security or any of its divisions that we may not be obligated to today?
Today, we're part of a statewide mutual aid compact, so we go back and forth, whether it be in a police cruiser or a police vessel. We can go back and forth due to state statute, mutual aid compact. So we do that today. We don't do it often. This is not going to increase that, absolutely not. And FEMA-wise, they are looking for capability within our area. That's basically why they're giving the money. If we had an issue at the subbase, would we go? We'd probably go today. It's not going to change that. Nothing's going to change here in our mission. I'm not sure how else I can answer the question.
I guess he's asking, there's no requirement.
Sir,
Yes.
please state your name and stand up.
My name is James McKine. Just to clarify the question that this gentleman was asking, he's really asking the point, is the mission, do we have additional responsibilities as a result of accepting the FEMA grant?
The question was, do we have additional responsibilities as a result of accepting the FEMA grant?
No, we don't.
I have one additional question.
Yes, sir.
Could I
Please.
just finish? Yeah, Mr. Finch, I believe it was from the Board of Finance. He had indicated that the Board, Police Commission, in his summary, he indicated that this had been approved or was generally approved by the Police Commission and the Board of Finance. Now, I'm confused on that. I thought that the Board of Finance had voted originally against this, and then on a subsequent meeting, they agreed to send it to town meeting. I'm not clear that the Board of Finance ever approved the funding of the vote. Is that true or not?
That's not true, sir. There was a rather lengthy, raucous meeting, some might say, where the initial vote by the Board of Finance was not to accept the grant. After further discussion, the motion was changed and they did endorse. We cannot, the town charter does not allow us to bring financial things to a town meeting and a town vote without the endorsement of the Board of Finance and the Board of Selectmen. So just the fact that you're sitting here requires both of those boards to have had a yes vote and endorse the project. Does that answer your question, sir?
Yes, it does. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
All right, I have comments, no questions. My name is Sergeant Philip Kozowski. I work for the Department of Defense and Homeland Security. I also live in the town of Saybrook. I've been a voter all my life. I grew up on a Connecticut. We have more than one nuclear reactor in the state of Connecticut. We have upwards of 18 at any given time. I protect 17 of those 18. I want that thing on that boat. You want that thing on that boat. Early detection. Because the terrorists don't care what time they hit. They don't care if it's convenient for you or not. I'm a watch commander for the night shift. I'm in charge of 12 patrol boats at any given time. And 67 personnel. I've been watching the bickering go back and forth all week, whether it be personnel issues or not. I'm worried about my daughter growing up in this town. I'm worried about every one of your kids. I think the police department's done a damn good job protecting our children. I want them to continue doing that. If somebody goes to the beach and their kid does not come out of that water, you want this new boat to go down there and find your kid. Then you're going to say, where's that new police boat? It's a no-brainer. $90,000 for almost $400,000 boat. You get two brand new engines, one breaks down, the other one takes them home. It's new. It doesn't have to be towed in. Believe me, I know what I'm talking about when it comes to the Homeland Security end. Homeland Security has given us this money for one reason, because they want your homeland to be secured. Right here. They're going to do it for other towns just as well. The mission's not going to change at all. It's mutual aid agreements, that's all it is. Just like the fire department responds to Westbrook for a big fire, Deep River comes down here and responds to a big fire. Nothing's going to change at all. But the bottom line is, number one rule for police officers is to go home at the end of your shift. And they're not going to do that on a piece of crap they're doing it on now. I've said my piece. Thank you.
My name is John Dewey, and I'm a resident in Old Saybrook for the last 28 years. We want to buy a boat. According to the RFD,
Keep the mic up, please.
according to the RFD that was put out, this boat's going to have gun racks on it. And 600 horsepower worth of engines. And bulletproof at that. Why? Does the involvement in the deal with Homeland Security require our policemen to respond with automatic machine guns? Does it include bulletproof vests? Who are we trying to kill? The Old Saybrook Police have a patrol boat forever. The record shows that they did not do a good job of using it. If you were going to judge a good job as being a considerable number of arrests or citations or written warnings. In fact, I got a police report on that boat, and I figured out as well as I could from the hauling figures that you couldn't read and you couldn't interpret, that it cost about $5,000 for every written warning that boat issued. There are a lot of hours used on it, but I have a boat on the river, and I could count on 2 fingers the number of times I saw that boat in or around the bridges that you're claiming you need to protect. Nowhere in the records was there a report of a gun having to be used in any of these incidents. In fact, there's no good reason for having a patrol boat at all, let alone an armed one. But it's just another thing about our grossly over-policed town. It's not just a boat, as to take a leaf from the thing that was put out by the Just a Boat people. There's been a lot of public discussion about this whole subject that I don't believe I need to go into again. But it should be very clear to the town administration that the budget for the police department should be reducing by 6%, not increasing by 6%, which was their latest request. They are currently... We are New Haven. We are New Britain. The rest of the towns around us don't seem to have any interest in contributing to our water safety. We have a fire department that has a boat that was designed for search and rescue. And while it might be a little bit inconvenient if you had to share this boat between the police and the fire department, but I don't see any reason why it can't be done apart from maintaining each other's egos. I would like to propose that you turn this proposal down, and then we can have a sensible discussion of about what we're going to do in the future to replace the patrol facility if we figure that we really need that.
Any further discussion or comments? Yes, ma'am.
I'm Vicki Dahlstrom. I've lived here most of my life. I didn't hear about any people about this vote. I'm all for the police department to protect us, as it says, protect and serve. Is some of this stuff a little futuristic? Maybe, but if it's going to cost us less money in the short run or long run, I say go for it. I just want to make sure that the budget for personnel doesn't go haywire. And what's going to happen if you're on a mutual aid thing and you're there 20 hours? That's overtime, that's whatever. Where is that going to come? Are you going to then cut off at the end of the year your patrol? How is that going to be made up? I guess that's not my main.
So in terms of the overtime and the, making up patrols or cutting down patrols, so throughout the entire course of the year, the police commission meets with the chief and we look at the budget and how the budget is running. And if there's times that we have to reduce patrols, we absolutely have to do that to work within our budget. The police boat is not a manned operation of the police department, so there's nobody assigned to Marine Patrol in their normal hours. It's all extra duty, so if it's reduced, it's reduced. It's not a scheduling anomaly or anything like that. So if the boat is out on a Saturday, it's somebody who's off on a Saturday taking the patrol. If that answers your question.
Is that on overtime? They're off, but they're on overtime patrolling in the boat?
Correct.
There's been a couple questions about overtime and budgeting, and I just want to talk about that briefly. Because I've been reviewing budgets for about 2 months now, as we presented to the Board of Finance for March 1. In the police budget, as in other budgets, they have overtime line items. So the police have a line item for overtime and vacation, because they do have to budget for those things. You're exactly right. What if there's a 20-hour incident? They've had 20-hour incidents before on land, where they've called in more than the officers that are currently on patrol, and that has to be worked into the budget. It will, sometimes it goes over. I think in the last 2 or 3 years it's gone over once, and it's been within budget once. And if it goes over, the police department may come back to either the Board of Finance or town meeting at the end of the year, just like you're saying, to ask for more money, as some other departments have done. But other times they don't need to, and it does depend, as Officer Walsh said, on what happens in society that particular day. But you're 100% right, and I believe Ms. Gezik had a similar type question.
It says no overtime, no additional hours.
Well, it says no additional no additional patrol hours. But if there is an accident in the river, it could absolutely require extra hours and extra personnel, just like it would on land. And there is a line item in the budget, in the police department budget, to address those needs as they occur. And sometimes it does go over, and sometimes it stays under. It's a wild card, so it's budgeted the best it can be budgeted, and they're not the only department that tries to budget like that. So I've heard that a couple times now, and I just want to say there is a line item to budget for items that are unexpected.
Yes, sir.
My name's John Wiley. I've lived here for 10 years. I've been voting here for 40 years. I moved here from New York, thank God, because my dad showed me this area. It is not New Haven. It is not New Britain. It's a beautiful area, and I want to keep it that way. And I'm not as concerned about the arrest, I'm more concerned about deterrent. And I want to see a 28-footer, I want to see it lit up, I want to see it badged on the side so people are afraid to speed through our waters. So people aren't going 8 miles an hour through a 5-mile-an-hour no-wake zone and destroying a beautiful business that Stephen has set up over there. We have, what, 8, 9 marinas? Boats are getting damaged by boats flying through this area. We need it patrolled. We need deterrence. This boat is a great deterrent. It's 28 feet. It's going to stick out like a sore thumb. Aluminum. He said it's a work boat. Great. I want it to stick out. I want it to be what other people are afraid of, coming through our waters and damaging and making our kids at harm. I'm an 11-year-old that's going to be boating on this water soon. If someone hurts him, I'd want to kill him. And if these people are going through these waters speeding, I'm going to be awfully pissed. But when these guys are out in that boat, risking their lives, and yes, in their bulletproof vests, and yes, in their guns, because they need to come home to their family, well, I want my family to come home also, so we are completely protected in this beautiful town, and let's keep it that way.
Yes, sir.
My name is Barry Moore. I think the police department should have a vote. I don't have a problem with that. At the beginning of this meeting, I believe as Mr. Finch pointed out, that it's not an opportune time to be asking the town for money. I'll second that. This is not a good time to be asking us for money. We've got the new police department, we've got the school building repairs, we've got the football field, and we've got the water pollution control business going on, and that's going to be an issue coming up. What I saw here tonight, it was a good presentation. I think the police department is right now giving the town's finances where we are. I think it's asking for a dreamboat. Granted, it's 25 cents on the dollar, sounds like a good deal. I'm a little bit leery of getting into bed with the federal government. We're finding that out with the water pollution control. There are strings attached when we do this. You don't know what the strings are because we can't see the bid or the grant. Okay, we can. To me, that's a deal breaker. You're buying a pig in a poke if you can't see the detail on this. The boat, $229,000 space boat, 28-foot boat. Maybe it's worth it. I don't know. But to me, it seems like a lot of money before you even put an engine on it. As far as the gentleman's concerned about nuclear fallout, legitimate. I don't know why you can't take that handheld device and put it on the boat you have now. Going to the same purpose. I think this whole thing should be reconsidered. I think the department should go back and look at a more reasonable boat, something comparable to the one we have now for patrolling, if we have to patrol. And I think we've got a great fireboat for search and rescue. I don't think we'd have to duplicate the search and rescue part. This is a very expensive boat, and it's tied to the federal government. And I think we should have the least to do with the federal government as we can get away with. That's it.
Yes, sir, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Donna Bell. Just a couple of things. I was just wondering who here this evening actually saw the application. Decided what? Did I hear it right? That Carl, you saw it? Attorney
Turn the microphone so we can all hear what you have to say.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I had a big enough mouth.
Not for everybody, I'm back.
My name is Donna, and I just had, I was, a concern for me. I was curious to know who in the room saw the application. And Carl, you said you did. Attorney Cronin, you saw it? And the two of you obviously saw it. And that's it? Board of Finance did not see it. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Who were elected by the townspeople. On a need-to-know basis, and I respect Attorney Cronin's recommendation, and that's what it is, I think all of us, as taxpayers, have a right to see it, for whatever it's in it. I don't know. So that's one thing comment that I wanted to make. The other thing is, as far as servicing the boat, now we have the fire dog, and that's serviced locally, am I correct? Okay, who services that? And what are the costs associated with that? And ongoing for this police boat, will this be serviced locally, and will there be an RFP out, and maybe some bids, or is one particular marina servicing these boats? I don't know, I'm just curious. Can you answer that for me?
Do you have any other questions?
That's enough.
Recognize Mr. Cronin.
Yes, Tom, I'd like to respond to your very legitimate concern. When this issue came up initially, Chief Spiro had received a FOI request to see the grant. He brought it to my office. I looked over the envelope, which had all the warnings. You saw the warnings here. It was on the seal. Anyone that looked at it was subject to the penalties and anything else by violating federal law. I checked out the FOI Act, and there's a provision in the Act saying that every document, public document, is accessible to the public under certain exceptions. And one of the exceptions in the Act says, unless otherwise provided by federal law. And here it is, prohibited from distribution, only to those people who met the characteristic of need to know. I followed this up with a call to the State FOI Commission, who confirmed, we reviewed the thing, that concurred with my opinion in it. I had access to the document. As far as I know, Chief Spiro, myself, and Carl Fortuna, who, by the way, in addition to First Selectman, is the military leader of this community, by statute. I think in that instance,
We trust him.
seriously, he's our military leader. So we also review it. Now, what I would like to do, although it's on site, I'd like to read a part of my legal opinion that I gave to Chief Spiro with regard to the release of the information and what is in there. I said this: at your request, I personally examined the grant document referred to above. Although I cannot discuss its contents with any non-exempt person, I can state what it does not contain. The question has came up with regard to the purchase of the police boat, and as to whether or not accepting these federal funds will burden the town with new and/or costly requirements or duties which would not otherwise be imposed on the town had it not accepted the grant. I can categorically state that the provisions of the grant do not impose any new or additional responsibility or costs upon the town, other than that which is generally required of the town in the performance of its public policies, duties, and responsibilities. The grant is to help the town to defray the cost of the purchase of a new police boat. It is nothing more or less than that. Thank you.
Yep, ma'am, so I'm going to answer your question the best I can about the service. As long as I've been here, the boat has been kept and maintained by the Police Marina. They're Cruiser or Mercury technicians, and that's the type of motors that are on the boat. You mentioned, does it go out to RFP?
Or is it bid? Did someone bid on the work that was done on, that's being done on
I can't speak for the fire board, I can speak for the police board that, you know, based on, I believe it's town charter, under $25,000, you don't have to go to RFP, so we can select the proper technician to work on our equipment that way.
I must say to you that I find,
Please state your name.
Dick Duty, I find the explanation just given to us by Town Attorney Cronin to be inadequate. We're talking about civilian oversight. We're talking about the committee of the whole, the voters, voting on an appropriation. We're not being given access to the information that's required to vote on that appropriation. That's what concerns me.
Hi, my name is Brad Ford. Got it? Right. And I also serve on the Board of Finance. And I want to talk to you about, I'm very concerned about true figures for what we're spending. In 2011-2012, the budget for the Marine Patrol was $25,708. They spent $33,918, 31.9 over budget. In 2012-2013, their budget was $35,000 for personnel, and they spent $40,455, 15.6 over budget. In 2013-2014, the budget was $35,000, and they spent $42,500. Now we're talking about training 35 people to run this boat. Where is the money coming from? They're already over budget for the last 3 years. They're talking about, when you talk about training somebody, I believe the state law is a minimum of 4 hours. If you take 4 hours times 35 bodies, you're talking about 140 hours. The average pay, I know they're not all policemen, but the average pay for the policeman at the patrolman level is about $33. So we're talking about thousands of dollars here that need to be accounted for. So I'm concerned about that. I just want to know the true figures so that when we do, if we do get a boat, I do believe we need a boat, but I do believe that we need to know what the actual figures are to train the people for the hours and patrolling the boat. They haven't been within their budget for the last 3 years. So I'm concerned about that. And the last thing I would like to ask is the RFP was due yesterday. What were the bids?
Can't hear you.
Just wait. Further questions?
You can answer that.
So yesterday was our bid opening. We received 4 bids. They ranged from $254,000 to, I believe, $354,000. That does not include some items that we are going to provide, including the CBNRE equipment. We looked at the grants, we accepted them all, and then we put them back in the box based on this meeting and the future vote. We were going to waste man hours looking at that, not moving forward.
I looked into some other towns that did get these grants, and it's kind of strange. I don't want to go against Attorney Cronin's opinion, but it's strictly an opinion. In other towns, Board of Finance was aware of what was going on, and I believe the Board of Finance had the need to know. We need to know what it's going to cost. Thank you. Just to respond to that about the training, as we showed in the slideshow, you know, the 35 officers are going to have an orientation on this boat. That's provided and funded through the Port Security Grant. The operators are going to receive a little more extended training, again, provided through that grant. And it's strictly going to be on the system. I'm a Coast Guard licensed captain, been boating all my life. Sergeant Perry's been boating all our lives. We know how to drive boats and operate boats. But here we're going to learn how to use the radar and the FLIR
and the systems on board the boat. It's not an extensive training thing.
Wait, let's see if any others want to speak. Yes, sir.
Hank Conti, I got a question about the bid. You were talking about the bids. The bids are just coming in now, and you've got a variation of, what, 78,000, is that correct? Now, how do we go about figuring out where the bids are going to actually go to? And what happens if we come out over that amount that you've been talking about?
So I can answer that. We received 4 bids. We put the RFP, request for proposal, out on the state bid contracting website, and we advertise it as we have to for any capital or project that's over $25,000. So we had 4 companies respond to our proposal, and we will be able to fund this project within the $361,000.
Okay, another question I have is, as far as the dockage, is it the same dock, or do we have to upgrade? Do we have to do anything different that's going to cost more?
It's the same dock.
Any further discussion or comments? Yes, sir.
Mike Paradise, 2 comments. Can everybody hear me? Maybe.
Oh, 2 comments to make. First, regarding the cost of the town, we have a population around 10,000 in Saybrook. It floats up and down a little bit, but what we need to realize is there's a service population in town. Your service population is everybody that comes into your town, whether it's on land or in the water. You can't choose to serve just your residents that stay in town and live in town. You have to serve everybody that comes in. If you live in Hartford, you live in Middletown, you drive down to Old Saybrook to visit some of the awesome shopping, go to some of the great restaurants, you have a car accident, we're going to help you. You drive your boat down the river, you come down to the mouth of the river, you have an accident, but you live in Middletown, you gotta get help. You're not gonna sit there and call your local police department and have them come down and help you. It's the town of Old Saybrook that's gonna do that. Service population is much higher in Old Saybrook than it is in most towns around here because of the expansion of shopping, all the businesses, the industry as well, and the restaurants. Everybody knows that. Everybody knows you come to town, you're coming down Main Street, you're coming shopping. You're not hopping over to Westbrook, Clinton, those areas quite as much as you come to Old Saybrook. The second thing is, if you're out on the water, you have a friend who's out on the water, you're at the beach, you're on a boat, you're doing anything like that, and somebody doesn't come out of the water, how many people do you want looking for you? You want one fireboat getting out there looking for you? Do you want every boat you know looking for you? You want everybody you can get out there to help you? Yeah, the fire department can't do, search and rescue. They can do recovery. Well, hopefully it's not recovery. Hopefully it is rescue. The more boats you have out there, the more people that are helping to look for you, the better chances of survival are going up. That's why when that happens, towns all around come to help. When there's a drowning or a near drowning, it's not just one town going. It's every town you can get. It's every boat you can get. It's helicopters if you can get it. It's everybody. The more boats we could put in to help, the chances are better for survival. If worst comes to worst, maybe you can get somebody back.
Good evening. I am Scott Giegrick. I'm one of the selectmen here in town. I'm simply here to make a statement. I'm on record with how I feel about this opportunity. I can share that if that would be anyone's wish. However, I stand before this crowd pleased to see so many interested individuals. The cornerstone of beliefs in the United States and any democratically organized community is the right to vote. However, with that right comes responsibility. It's important to learn about the matters at hand, to hear about the viewpoints, to deliberate, to empathize, to become as well-versed as possible to make a decision that is based on your findings, your beliefs, and your convictions. I'm comfortable to believe that, especially in our small community, people will ultimately do the right thing. That is, whatever is right to them according to their beliefs and their convictions. Instead of simply going along blindly, following a group, a political party, or a theme expressed in oftentimes anonymous manners. I believe you all here to learn more about this topic. By the end of this meeting, I believe everyone in this room will be able to make a more informed decision about this topic. So once again, I thank everyone for their interest tonight. Keep on being interested and active, and participate and vote on February 24th.
Yes, sir.
Yes, Lou Lewandowski. I have a couple of questions. The picture up there, not that one, but one of your other pictures, showed a person in the water recovery port. Was that written into the specification, or does the boat, or will the boat not have a person in the water recovery port? That's the first question. Second one, you talk about training, and I don't know what, I don't have the benefit of knowing what kind of equipment you were talking about as far as bulletproof vests and things like that, but organization I work for has a program for training for water safety with tactical gear, and it's a very comprehensive training program. It's not a 4-hour training program. So I would like to know the details about any sort of training as far as that goes. And the last one is, I got two of them here. You mentioned Captain Westerson there as the patrol operator, but he doesn't show up in the 2014 annual report as a paid employee of the department. He does in 2013, but not 2014. Was he in the employment of the department in 2014? And then the last one, sorry, I don't know whether you mentioned you were going through town reports, but if you look at our fire department, it's a volunteer organization. It's well run. It's highly regarded by this town. But if you want to know what it did in the past year, all you do is look in the town report. Has every call that went on, every water assist, anything like that. You go and look at what the police had done on the water for their boat. There's nothing. There's 2 pages of, this is what I want to have the police department be, rather than facts about what was done. So before, or if this, I don't know if it's possible to get this information on the Old Saybrook Police Department website before 2 Tuesdays from now. But if we could have the statistics of what the patrol boat has done over the past 2 years, I'd appreciate it.
So I'm going to try to remember everything that you asked. I believe it started with the...
Person in the water recovery report.
Correct. Okay.
The hole in the side.
Yeah, there is a dive door, if you want to call it a dive door, or recovery door, spec'd into the police boat. This boat is mission designed. A lot of people said, let's just go buy a boat off the shelf. We could do that, but it's not going to service the mission that we need. So again, this police boat is designed top to bottom, head to toe, systems inside and out for policing. The second thing you mentioned was your business, I believe, is training, water survival, water rescue.
No, I work for an organization that requires a very comprehensive tactical boat operator training program.
So we have a rather, we have a policy in Old Saybrook that dictates how the Marine patrols run. Simply requires a boating certificate. The chief has been great to expand that in the last few years. We've done a lot with the National Association of Boating Law Administrators, NASBLA, through the Port Security Grant funding, through New London Harbor, New Haven Harbor. There's been a lot of classes put on right out of Old Lyme, pursuit and stop, search and rescue. So we've tried to increase the scope of training for the Marine Patrol. As a boater myself, I can tell you that we're doing the best we can within our budget to be trained the best we can. One of our goals is to be able to develop new members of the police department into boat operators. Our current operators are Detective Sergeant Gene Heine, Master Sergeant Jay Rankin, myself, Sergeant DePerry, Detective Barnes, who I believe are here. We're local guys who know the area. something that concerns me is, sergeant of the department, is these guys that we're hiring from outside of town. We can't throw them on the boat at 2 in the morning and say, go recover that boat off hens and chickens, because they're going to be off hens and chickens themselves if they don't know the area. So there's a lot that goes into this whole program of training and how we do it.
Two other items. How about Captain Wester's in there? Is he, you said he was going to be one of the employees. Was there a lapse in his employment?
So I'll be honest with you, the employment status isn't really something I was involved in at that time. I'm sure we can get that answered shortly. And we can work on the statistics as well for the website.
Yeah, I hate to throw Grant under the bus. I see him sitting here, but I just noticed that as I was going through the books and the numbers there's a hole in the numbers. I'm thinking, well, wait a minute, where's the other operator? And Grant's a professional captain, so when he's on the water, okay, I know there's a professional captain operating the boat. I'm glad the other guys are licensed too. Then the last one I had was the information on the past 2 years worth of statistics.
Yeah, we've tried to answer every question we can. That's a new one we've been asked, and like I said, I know the chief is here, myself and Sergeant Perry are here. We can try to put those numbers together and put them out there.
Thank you.
Luke?
Yes, sir.
To answer your question, for over 35 years I've responded on that boat with no lapses
Okay.
in there.
Yes, sir.
My name is Dan Grace. Lived here for 12, 13 years. I'm just sitting here listening. I think this is one of the first and potentially only town meetings or whatever that I've been to. It seems to me the arguments are all over the place. We're getting wrapped around the axle of not the financial reason that we're here. There are arguments about having a boat or not, but we have one now. Arguments about manpower, well, we have manpower now. It just seems like the arguments aren't directed toward the issue at hand. I missed the beginning of the meeting. Maybe it was referred to. We have a $90,000 capital investment here on our hands. Maybe after some misappropriated overtime or something, that number gets to 100,000, then 130, then 150, which is still in my mind going to be half what a replacement boat of the same one we have today is going to cost 3 years from now. So I'm trying to understand the alternate here. If this is what's presented today, what's the 3 to 5 year plan given the current vessel that we have today, so we have some comparison to deal with. I think of it just on a personal level, very simplistic. 2006 Pacific, I'm driving around 140,000 miles. I want to replace it in a couple of years, probably for 30 grand. Somebody says, here's a better one at 40 grand, and you're only going to pay 10. I'm jumping on it all day. So, a little more practical in that sense.
There was a question about the alternative.
So I can answer that real quick. So the alternative is to put in for a new police boat into our Marine Patrol budget. I mean, there's really not an alternative. We have to put capital money towards a new police boat, and I think that's moving forward. If we do not get voted on this police vessel, we will again try to put it in our budget in the following year, like we have for the past 5 years, but have had it cut out of our budget. We have realized that this problem is coming. The Board of Finance told us to go look for a grant. We did. We were funded in that grant, and this is where we are today.
The comment was, could you give them a guesstimate as to what it would cost just to go buy a boat?
$361,000 minus $23,000 for that detector.
My name is Sharon Tizzy. I've been a resident here in Old Saybrook for 30 years.
My name is
is Sharon Tizzy, and I've been a resident here in Saybrook for 30 years. I have grown up on the shoreline all my life. I think, just as a comment, I think we're going to miss the boat right now if we don't go for this grant for $90,000. I mean, our cost from the town is only $90,000 for a $361,000 boat. And that's all I have to say.
Yes.
My name is Maureen Walsh. I am the wife of Sergeant Walsh, and I'm speaking as a wife of an Old Saybrook police officer requesting you please consider voting yes at the referendum in support of the new police boat. My husband has spent countless hours on the boat since starting his career at the Old Saybrook Police Department 13 years ago and will continue to spend countless hours on the boat in the future. His safety on the job is of utmost importance to me personally and my 2 young children. Not replacing the old, outdated, unreliable boat is a safety issue for not only the citizens and the visitors of Old Saybrook, but also my husband and the other men and women of the Old Saybrook Police Department Marine Patrol. When Ryan took the police oath, I made a promise to support him in his decision to follow his dream to become a police officer. Knowing his decision would mean that me and our future family would be making many sacrifices along the way, including him working weekends, odd hours, being called out unexpectedly in the middle of the night, missing many family occasions, and potentially putting his own life before others. His promise to me was that he would return home safely every shift. It was my expectation that the town would support the Old Saybrook Police Department by giving my husband and the other officers the tools and the training necessary to do the job and to do it safely. The officers and the chief of police have been working tirelessly for the town of Old Saybrook. For the past 3 years, they've been working tirelessly to win this grant to obtain funding for a new police boat. This grant is a great opportunity for the town and the department. Please consider giving the officers of the Old Saybrook Police Department, the men and women that we ask so much of every hour of every day, the equipment that they need to do their job. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Good evening, my name is Brian Zukowski. I'm a member of the police department here for 17 years. I'm also the president of the Police Association, Police Union. And I just would like to make a comment. Listening to everybody here, and it's stimulating to know that people actually are looking into the backbone of all of the facts and the figures. But I also just want to address the idea that this has become a faction of personal agendas. There has seemed to be a movement of a blockage of this, what would be a no-brain situation if you were dealing with this on a personal level. If you were making this financial decision for your own person, if you walked into this room and there was nothing else but a piece of paper in front of you, and you read the facts that say you could spend this much money and acquire this asset, or you could not do this and have an unknown expenditure in the years to come. If you took all of the personal agendas out of this, this would be a no-brain decision. I just hope that our safety, if we continue the Marine Patrol, which we should, it's not for me to decide. When we continue the Marine Patrol, that you don't put the personal agendas in front of the safety of the officers that I work with, see it go out there in the middle of the night. And to add a little levity to this, I didn't come from this town. I grew up on a farm. My first boat call that I had to go on to take a report for somebody who had their outdrive stolen, I said, I would love to take that report for you. Could you please show me where the outdrive is and what it does? So I'm not here because I love boats. It's part of my job on a daily basis here because we are on the shoreline with 9 marinas. But again, I'm just going to emphasize, I really hope that the personal agendas and the factions that get involved to say that we want to do this to block, based on our personal agendas, don't influence what would be a no-brainer decision if you were making this financial decision for yourselves. Thank you.
Yes, in the back.
Hi, my name is Jamie Gitt. I'm wondering if the new boat goes through, what will happen to the old boat? Will it remain in the police department's, the Marine Patrol's inventory, or what would happen to them?
Great question. So the plan for the old boat is obviously it was acquired through the U.S. Coast Guard, and I think we've already gotten an official or unofficial ruling on this. We would be able to sell that boat. So the money from the sale of that boat would obviously go towards the Marine Patrol budget. So that's something that we are currently looking into. It's a replacement vessel. We're not looking to keep this boat. We're not looking to repair it. We're looking to get rid of it if we can. And we've already started the process of looking into that. But again, if we do build a new boat, we're talking about 9 months from now. So we're not talking about tomorrow. It's going to take a little while to build a new boat.
Yes. Mr. Tagliatelle.
Good evening. My name is Stephen Tagliatella. I'm the co-owner of Saybrook Point Indian Marina, and I've been co-owner for almost 35 years. I've watched these guys come to our fuel dock on a regular basis just to tie up and to tell us what's going on, communicate with us, and keep the water safe. It's not always safe out there, and things can happen very, very quickly. We've had deaths in the Connecticut River, we've had deaths on the eastern breakwater of Old Saybrook, and there's been some terrible deaths that we've read about and heard about in the Greenwich area this past summer. And I know by their presence, it helps keeping people safe, it keeps people aware, and it really helps with just everybody's safety out there. It's not always nice out there, as you heard. It's stormy, it's windy, that's when things happen. Usually not on a bright sunny day when there's no wind. And these guys need a safe environment to operate from, and I really hope that when the boat comes down, people will do the right thing, because we want not only our people safe in our communities, but we want our police officers safe that put their lives on the line for us. Thank you very much.
Yes, in the back. Hold on 1 second. Wait for the mic and state your name, please.
Paula Kay, what is the cost of the boat to replace something comparable to the 23-foot boat that the town currently has? What would be the range of cost to replace a boat of similar kind?
So the only comparison study we did recently when all these questions came up was for a 28-foot Parker, which is a similar hull design with a little cabin built on the boat. So a 28-foot fiberglass hull boat with the same motors is $175,000. That has no electronics or none of the other equipment that we would be required to put on it to make it patrol capable. And at that time, it's still not designed for police work, so it's not going to have the door for recovery. It's not going to have lights. It's going to have fishing rod holders.
Mr. Dewey. Wait for the mic, John.
The issue, in my view, is not really whether you should have a boat of this size or that size. Everything I've heard tonight says this boat has gotten up to this huge level because it's got to be suitable for search and rescue. We have a search and rescue boat in this town already, aptly controlled by people who know what they're doing. As I see it, this is an interdepartmental battle because our police force now wants to take over this from them. And that's all very fine, except that the price tag that comes with this exercise could very well be used for something a lot more intelligent in this town than another search and rescue boat masquerading as a police boat. All you need for a police boat is a 17-foot whaler with one policeman on it. That's what a lot of people use, and it doesn't have to go to Plum Island, it doesn't have to go anywhere. All it has to do is look at the local waters. Remember, it's only staffed 3 days a week in summertime. By the way, is Homeland Security going to let you continue staffing it 3 days a week in summertime? And if they are not going to let them, then who's going to pay for all the extra hours to do the whole of the year and the rest of the week? To my mind, this thing's just gotten out of hand. We're trying to replace a police patrol system that has patrolled here for something like 25 years. It doesn't do a lot.
Moderator, I think you need to continue. He's repeating
Point of order. Excuse me, sir.
Hey, let him talk.
Mr. Dewey's making a point. Thank you.
He already repeated this point. Hey, shut up. Let him talk.
All we need to do, if we have to, is replace what we're doing now with the amount that we do now, with the size of equipment or what's suitable for doing that. This is mission creep at its very best. And I, as a taxpayer in Old Saybrook, think that we should use the money that's being put into this mission creep into something more useful, like education or like fire department equipment that's needed or anything. But this thing is just duplicating it.
Thank you. Yes, over here. Step up.
I've lived here in town my whole life. My dad grew up here. And this police department does more in this town than anyone in this town will ever know. And they do a fantastic job of keeping it quiet so that everyone that lives here has the peace of mind that we live in these small towns. Whether we be on land, whether it be in the water. And the point that's coming up tonight, in my mind, is the boat that they have is going to fall apart. Whether it falls apart while it's in storage right now, or if it's on a wall. And I hope that it's not my friend or family that they're trying to rescue when the boat falls apart. $90,000 now, or $300,000 in 3 years. And that's just the point. It seems pretty easy and straightforward to me. And personal feelings for the police department should be put aside when you vote. That's all I have to say.
Honeywell, living in Old Saybrook for 24 years. My first question to the group is, has anybody seen the boat we're talking about tonight? Looked at it personally, other than the pictures and things like that. I have. I've seen the boat for the last 24 years, to be exact, since I moved here. And to be honest with you, the boat's done. Okay? I wouldn't even operate it. I think these guys have done a great job holding it together. Second of all, I've got 30 years experience in municipal operations. I work with towns on these sort of things, on grants. And I can tell you one thing, they're very difficult to get. And when you let them go, they are gone. They don't come back. You're not received again. They are very difficult to get. So my question to this group is, do you understand what these people went through to try to get this grant? To separate the cost for this town, for this boat. It was considerable effort by everybody to do it. And they don't come by every day. And Homeland Security is very secure in their information. I have lots of security clearances, and I can tell you, I understand why this is not public knowledge. I'm sorry it's not. I wish it could be, but it's not going to be. But please understand that this grant is important to the town, and you are going to benefit from it. And these guys have put a lot into this to make this happen. Thank you.
Yes. No, we're good.
Hi, I'm Eleanor LaPlace. I have lived on the Connecticut River for 43 years. I can tell you that the amount of boat traffic in that Connecticut River has significantly declined, particularly this year. This year, I was amazed. I don't think
Usually, in the 70s, in the 80s, and the 90s, from 6 o'clock in the morning to way late at night, you would see boats after boats after boats on the Connecticut River. You no longer see them. You don't see the tugboats and the barges anymore either. And I would like to say that the taxpayers of the town of Old Saybrook should be aware, when you are asked to spend $361,570 for a boat, and you are denied access to that information that is not in the best of your interest, you have no idea. And anytime you make it's always in the small print, and it's always in the details. That's where you'll find the devil. So I would strongly advise, and I do have a question. On the RFP where it says 87 additional systems and hardware, does that mean that this is going to cost the taxpayers more, or is that included in the $361,570? It's right here. It's for wheeling emergency lighting system and siren, WatchGuard video system with 2 video inputs and Watch Commander, Panasonic Toughboat laptop computer to be mounted on the port side of the pilot house dash with the box aluminum, bolt mount, computer network equipment, BS and AS VHS radios, patrol rifle mounts, which I'm extremely against. Don't have to pay. But are those extra costs to the taxpayer?
No, they are not. The patrol rifle mounts, just to alleviate this concern, we currently carry a patrol rifle on the marine vessel, and it's brought to and from the boat during every patrol that a police officer is on, and it's kept in a canvas bag. We have a patrol rifle program here in Old Saybrook. We're all certified to carry patrol rifles, and again, it's for your safety and protection.
Mr. Maselli?
Joe Maselli from Pheasant Hill Lane, a father, a lifetime boater, and I've even worked part-time at one of our local marinas. I want to take a moment to pause and say thank you to you guys and to your team. As a member of the commission, police commission, I'm also a proud member of that. The residents of this town challenge us to be fiscally responsible. $90,000 is fiscally responsible for a piece of equipment that we have shown very clearly is needed by this town. I also want to thank you for your patience, because the misinformation that has been rampant through town the last several weeks has got to be very frustrating for you and your team. Speaking personally, anyone who has approached me for information, to a person, once the facts are explained, understand this is a piece of equipment that needs to be replaced, and this is a fiscally responsible opportunity to do so. And lastly, to be clear, this is a piece of equipment for the Old Saybrook Marine Patrol. It is not the chief's boat. It is not my boat. It is a boat for the town of Old Saybrook. Thank you.
The young lady here.
Hi, my name is Erin Fiorelli. I think we need to have the police boat. One, to keep everyone safe and kids with their parents like me. The boat will be good for the police department and water rescue and help people if they need any kind of help. Thank you. Good night, everybody.
That's how we should end the meeting. Any further comment or discussion?
I just have one more question.
One more question, and that's it.
What was the variance on those bids?
I believe it was 250 to 350. Let me continue for a second. So the other equipment that Ms. Laplace just mentioned, I mentioned that we had to buy some items. Those are the items that we have to purchase based on hiring agreements and rules and regulations. So there's a significant amount of money that is not included in that cost.
Even if everyone was given the same thing to bid on, how did we go from 250 to 350? Like,
So,
I just want to make sure,
yeah.
and that we don't go with the lowest bid because we see what happened at the field.
Sure,
Like, I just don't want us to be sure. Like,
Yeah.
if we're going to go and we're going to spend money, we need to spend it wisely.
So as I mentioned earlier, so there's certain patrol boats that we looked at in design. So these builders are offering us their patrol boat. We spec'd X, they offered us E, and Y they think E will fit with modifications. So we didn't go out and buy a Honda Accord. We said we want a car with 4 doors, 4 wheels that fits this need. The 4 builders said, this is what we have for you. We can do it for X, we can do it for Y, we can do it for Z. And we have to decide which one fits the need of the department and the FEMA grant.
So we can't really do an apples-to-apples comparison on these quotes then? That's my question is, are we going to end up getting a lot less for the 250 when if we spend the 350, we get a whole lot more?
I can tell you 2 builders did spec the same boat, and their prices are drastically different based on where they're built and how they build them and stuff like that. So that's something the Marine Committee is going to do, is go over these when we get to it and go apples and oranges and say, okay, this guy's using half-inch aluminum, this guy's using 3/8 aluminum. Why is it cheaper, why is it more expensive?
But like when we place the price out, just for an example, the police cars, when you want 2015 Ford Tauruses or whatever the new car is, the car is the car, and then we have the package that we added to it. I don't understand if they were given something to bid on, why we can't make it easier to know that we're gonna get the same thing. Like with the field, I don't know what happened there, but clearly there's some problem there, and now we're gonna end up probably spending more money or having to spend money in lawsuits. So what I'm saying is why, if you're given something to bid on, why are you not bidding on that same thing? Why is this guy gonna build it out of 3/8 and this guy's gonna do something else? You asked them for something.
I did, so they're just suggesting modifications, so they're offering us modifications. So basically, there isn't a Honda Accord to go buy. It's a police boat, and this is the one they offer, this is the one they offer. They're trying to meet our grant. It's the best way to explain that.
Why wouldn't it be in our best interest to go with the cheaper one if they think that's adequate? Just to play devil's advocate.
Well, it's up to us to decide if it's adequate, if it meets the needs of the grant.
But that's what I'm saying, does that, do those low bids meet the needs of the grant?
Question regarding tonight's the appropriation, then the committee will then take the appropriated funds and make a decision, so I think we've got a clear answer. Okay, I think we've, one more comment here.
I'm Bob Daly. Does the grant require search and rescue as a mission?
No, the grant doesn't require anything other than it to be available. Our current mission includes search and rescue. We do plan on continuing search and rescue missions.
Okay, so I would just suggest that the way to cut the cost of the boat, you can still keep the grant at 25% cost. It's to drop that because it is redundant to, I think it's redundant to the fire department. So you maybe get the boat for $250,000, you only have to pay 25% of that.
Okay, that will conclude our business following the reasonable discussion. The town meeting will be adjourned to the referendum as stated before on February 24th, 2015. Thank you all for your civility and attendance tonight.